Welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of May 20th, 2024. Before I get started, I want to shout out to the folks at Adobe. You know, Adobe, the people who make Acrobat, the people who make Photoshop and Illustrator. Well, the story goes like this. I produce this podcast in Adobe Premiere Pro, which is a video editing program, not an audio editing program. I do that because there's always some sort of video background, even if it's a static slide, which is what you're getting if you see this on YouTube. Also, I think that while Audition, which is their audio only program, is great and it does things that are amazing, I don't need it to record a podcast. I find that when it comes to simple edits and stuff like that Premiere Pro does exactly what I want, and I'm very familiar with it because I'm good at videos. But I digress. Using Adobe Premiere Pro this morning, I turned it on and found that all of the labels, all of the colors that are in the timeline shifted to this sort of dark, muted, disgusting, icky color. And it took me about 15 minutes of searching through Reddit threads and Adobe community forums to find out that they did this on purpose. They did this without asking their huge user base if it was a good idea. I personally don't find it was a good idea, and I was able to revert back to the colors that I liked, so it wasn't super hard. But this is just something that's a pet peeve of mine. When you develop a 20 or so year relationship with a software development company and they just change things for no particular reason, I don't go for that, and it's really annoying to me. But now that I've spent 2 minutes whining about my own particular situation, let me spend another 10 minutes whining about my own particular situation. After all, folks, that's why you listen to the Solid Signal podcast, right? I'm just kind of joking. But I do want to tell a story from my own life, and I hope that it gets us to the point where we're really talking kind of on topic about what we talk about at the Solid Signal podcast. Not that long ago, I went to see my doctor, and they're in one of those large commercial buildings where, you know, all the doctors and all the labs are all in one place, and it's pretty sizable. And this building was only built, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. It was during lockdown that they built this whole thing. And so, you know, this is not an old building. This is a new building. And you go in there and you get about 5 feet inside the building and you lose all cell service. All 100% of cell service you lose. And they have free Wi-Fi available. They don't tell you that, but if you go searching for it, you find a guest network and you can connect to it. But it's just dog slow, which I'm sure is on purpose. And you have to, you know, agree to terms and conditions that if you really read them on your phone would take like 25 minutes and probably give you more eye strain than you walked in with, and then you'd have to go to a different doctor. So, you know, everybody agrees to the terms and conditions without reading them, unfortunately. It's kind of an epidemic here in our society. And I got around to thinking, well, why? Why are they offering free Wi-Fi? Why is it that they did this? And I think it's just because they didn't know any better. And if you don't know any better why they wouldn't offer free Wi-Fi, well, perhaps that's something that we need to talk about here on the Solid Signal podcast. Very briefly, because this is going to be the topic of another video that I'm working on, commercial buildings do a really, really good job of blocking cell signals. Matter of fact, it's almost as if they were designed to block cell signals. They're that good at it. And this isn't just medical buildings. A lot of times it's all buildings. You might get really bad cell service just, you know, wherever you're working. And it's frustrating too, because we don't really want to be disconnected. And nobody's saying that you should be goofing off during work or whatever, but certainly if you're waiting in the doctor's office, you should be able to use your phone. Why shouldn't you be able to? And don't give me that whole, you know, pacemakers and microwaves and stuff like that. Because there's going to be areas that you can't use your cell phone, and that's going to be clearly marked. But those areas are not the waiting room. And this was not a case where it said don't use your cell phone. It was just you couldn't use it. But there's an answer. There's an answer to how to do it, and it's better than free Wi-Fi. And it's to use what we call a passive distributed antenna system, or in short, a cell phone booster. You put an antenna, sometimes more than one antenna, up on the roof. You point it at the appropriate cell towers. You run a cable down to a single amplifier, and it pumps out great cell service throughout the building. If it's a bigger building, you can use multiple amplifiers if you want to. It's not that hard. This is something that your average facilities person can wire by themselves. It can be bought at retail at solidsignal.com, of course. And it's something that I think that every building should have. I mean, imagine the situation where you go into a store and you really, you're interested in shopping, but you don't get cell service. You're going to spend less time in that store. You don't have that option when it comes to medical offices. You don't generally choose how much time you spend at the doctor's office. If you chose it, you'd probably spend a lot less. So it should be as pleasant as possible. And putting in a cell phone booster is better than putting in free Wi-Fi from their point of view too, from the doctor's office point of view, because you have one device, an amplifier, that just does everything that needs to be done. You don't have to worry about people using too much bandwidth because you've got them on their Wi-Fi. You don't have to worry about security. You don't have to worry about putting an access point about every 50 feet, running network wire. That kind of thing is a pain in the neck, and I feel bad for the person who decided to add free Wi-Fi throughout that building, because I just don't think it was a good choice. And I think instead they should have gone for this kind of commercial cell booster system. And you ask yourself, well, okay, what cell booster system should I use? And that can be difficult to explain because you're going to want a simple answer, like, I've got a 20,000 square foot space, which one should I use? Unfortunately, signals don't work that way. You have to talk about how badly the building rejects cell phone signals and what's in the wall that might block cell phone signals. But it's still not that hard. If you're looking at a commercial cell phone signal booster system, or as we call it, a passive DAS, distributed antenna system, then what you do is you try to figure out where the cell phone signal is worst, and you put the indoor antenna there. And if you have no signal anywhere, then you put in multiple antennas, which is very easy to do, very easy to wire. If you're in a relatively small space, a single or double bay of a retail space, then that's really all it takes. If you're in a building with multiple floors, now you can get pretty serious. If you really want to wire everything up perfectly, if you really want to know, then you do something called a site survey. And the whole point of a site survey is that somebody goes around and measures cell signal about, every 5 to 10 square feet to try to figure out where it's good and where it's bad. You send all that data in the form of a spreadsheet to the engineers at Signal Connect, and we build what's called a heat map, which says this is where it's really good, this is where it's really bad, and it shows the effect that walls have on cell signals, because it'll show signal being better on one side of the wall and worse on one side of the wall. It will show how well you get Verizon versus AT&T versus T-Mobile. Give you all that information. And then we use a special CAD program called IB Wave to build a solution that addresses all those problems. It simulates what doing that work is going to mean. It says, okay, well, if I put an antenna here, how much signal is that going to help? And once it's all done, then we put it together on a blueprint of your building. We send it over, and we have a local installer take care of everything, put all the antennas where they need to be put, plug it in, and it's one of those things that just works. You very rarely even have to adjust anything. It just kind of works. You just point the outdoor antennas at the cell signals, and you put the indoor antennas where they need to be put. Cell phone signal boosters work very well in very large open spaces like warehouses, but that's not to say that they don't work in medical office spaces. And you don't necessarily need to worry about blocking if you're talking about something with, where people shouldn't use their cell phones. Those areas are usually shielded from cell phone service anyway. But if you're in a medical office where people should not be using their cell phones in a particular area, there's also shielding that you can put up if it hasn't been done yet. It's not that hard. The shielding is pretty similar to chicken wire in a lot of ways. It's very easy to install and not hard to do at all, and very effective indeed. So the bottom line here, folks, is that it's 2024, And cell service isn't one of those nice to have things anymore. This is a must have. None of us have landlines anymore. This is how people reach us. You could potentially be signing up for text messages from your medical provider, going to the medical office, and not be able to get them. And that could be really important stuff. Our cell phones are not just how people reach us, it's how we connect to the world. It's not just our socials, it's not just TikTok and Facebook and stuff that we watch to feel good or bad or whatever. It's our lifeline to the entire universe. And you know it too. I've often asked people, what do you think is the most valuable thing that you have? What is the thing that if you left it behind, you would feel the most anxious? And people will say, oh, my wedding ring, my wallet, my credit cards. Let me tell you something. If you think you left your wedding ring or your wallet at home, chances are, you are just fine with that. You're pretty sure it's at home. That's where it is. You'll go home when you get a chance. But if you find that you left your cell phone at home, I'm willing to bet you're turning around and going back, because that's how important these things are. And yet, most commercial buildings have really, really bad cell service, and I don't get it. I don't get it when it's so easy to fix. If you want to know more about commercial cell phone signal boosters, passive DAS systems, they're also called, then what you want to do is work with an expert. You can go to retail and you can find these things to buy. You can go to solidsignal.com and find systems for 5 square feet or 500,000 square feet, and you can buy them. You can put them in yourself. There's YouTubes on how to do it, and you're going to do pretty well there. But if you're talking about a commercial building and you really want the best, you want to work with the best. You want to work with the folks at Signal Connect who are going to help you find the perfect solution for you. And Signal Connect is one of those companies where they specialize in customer service. That's what we do at Signal Connect. It's not about selling something. It's about providing great service. The kind of service that, depending on where you are in your life's journey, you may not have ever had. Or if you are a little further along in your life's journey, you might think that you never might have it again. Well, the good news is if you're looking for the kind of customer service that you really deserve, you want to call the experts at Signal Connect. You want to call 888-233-7563 during East Coast business hours, and you're going to get taken care of. You're going to get somebody who listens. You're going to get somebody who gives you the best possible service and maybe even gives you their cell phone number so you can reach them. It's worth it, folks. Anyway, that's my push. Obviously, I'm a little cranky today, but these are the podcasts that tend to get the most listens, the ones where I go off the rails a little bit, so I don't mind doing it. If you want to know more, like I said, this podcast is sponsored by Solid Signal and Signal Connect. Call Signal Connect to get great customer service at 888-233-7563. Also, while you're at it, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Makes me look good to my bosses and keeps this podcast going. That's it for the Solid Signal podcast. I will see you again next week.